Well, green issues are certainly one of the main policy items that are highlighted in this new EU trade strategy. One of the big policies to come is what's called a carbon border adjustment mechanism, and that is basically to say that imports should have the same, be considered in the same way as EU production in terms of their the amount of carbon they emit or that they're responsible for, and there should be some kind of mechanism for ensuring this at the border. It's pretty complicated. We're not quite sure how it's going to work, but it would be a big change in the way world trade works if we have to, as well as consider the usual tariffs, we're considering as well for imports what's the carbon adjustment that it would need to pay.
So it's like trade deals are being used as a tool in tackling things like climate change. Now, I want to mention the crisis of confidence that we've been seeing at the World Trade Organization, deadlock basically under the previous US administration. How do you think Europe's relationship is going to change with the United States under Biden?
There's a lot of more optimism around that President Biden will want to help get things moving in the WTO. There's a new Director General has just come into position, and she'll be part of this as well. But there are no simple solutions to this, and I think that what the trade strategy does, it sets out a lot of the world that we're now in. It brings it up to date. It suggests what the EU would like to do. It would like to make the WTO a new source of rules for the world, updated in areas like climate change. But it's pretty short on knowing how exactly that is going to work when you have to get 100 countries to agree. And I think that is the drawback with a lot of this, and I think we've already heard that. A lot of good ideas here, not entirely clear how they're going to be implemented.
So a lot of good ideas, you say, but Brussels really not making a secret about how it wants to reform and revamp the World Trade Organization and how it operates. Yet with all the bilateral trade deals we keep hearing about, does anybody else care as much?
I think people do care about the World Trade Organization, but it's whether they care enough to make the political choices to prioritize fixing them, that maybe you don't get everything you want in the WTO, but you can all come to a deal. Now, that's a huge task to do that for 164 members, and even for the EU. Does the EU care enough to make its own compromises? The EU also talks extensively about its bilateral arrangements and how it's going to step up in enforcement as well. So I think everybody is hedging their bets a little bit and saying, look, yes, we'd like the WTO to be revived, but if it isn't, we've got our bilateral networks and we will make progress in that way.
Well, talking of bilateral networks, the EU's trade relationships, I suppose you could call them quite fluid when it comes to Brexit, and then China overtaking the US as the EU's #1 trading partner. So where is the competition? Where are the challenges coming from?
Well, I think that the trade strategy actually talks specifically about the major powers of trade. That is the US and China. Together with the EU, that is the trio that, it's quite an unstable trio, that are the big powers in trade policy, and they need to somehow work out how the system is going to work. There's also quite a lot of talk in the report about neighbouring countries. This is an area that the EU has done a lot of work in, but it's never been completely satisfactory, the relations, economic and political, with the neighbouring countries. And I think that there is a sign the EU wants to step that up, but it's difficult. We've already seen that with the UK. We're seeing that with countries like Switzerland. It's never easy, the EU dealing with their neighbours. They're the kind of the big power in the neighbourhood. So again, long on aspirations, not entirely clear what the actions will be that will fix those relationships.